Hey, good morning, Metropolis. It's now 5 after the hour of 6 a.m. in the big monster city.
Come on! Let's get pumped!
I'm not drinking any fucking Merlot! What can I say? The camera loves me.
Shall we begin? After you, Junior.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Logged It. Tim is not here, so I'm back to hosting solo again. But I think we got a really excellent panel for the topic, which is Hangout movies. So, yeah, let's just introduce the panel. First time, a lot of people, first time being on the show. Michael Campbell, how are you feeling?
Yeah, good. When you said you guys are doing Richard Linklater week, I was like, I got to be on. So here I am.
Dylan, another first-time guest on the show, newer to the community. Are you excited?
I am. This is actually really the first show in like the trivia leagues where I've actually just gotten to like talk about movies and not answer questions about them. So it should be fun.
Yeah, because you haven't been on YLS yet.
No, I haven't.
Okay, yeah, so this will be fun. And then, of course, Paul Oyama. I believe everyone here, this is their first time on the show, unless Scott has been on the show before.
I've not, no.
He was not. Okay, so Paul, also first time on the show. Yeah, I think you get more Letterboxd likes than anyone else here.
That's possible. I mean, I'm just excited to come on here and talk about the Newton Boys and Fast Food Nation. I think those are just really the hallmark hangout movies of our time. But no, I mean, this is fun. I think this is a really interesting panel of people who like probably of people in the community like most share my taste in general. But yeah, it's exciting times.
The most Paul thing is whenever anyone mentions something that is generally good, Paul will just find like
Newton Boys is pretty good, by the way.
Fair, but you'll find the obscure, like, oh yeah, well, what about this? And
Suburbia, yeah.
You do it so much that I just expected it this way.
I have to create a brand and I have to stick to that. That's how I get Letterboxd likes, Boatman. It's consistent.
That's fair. That's fair.
Let's compare Suicide Squad review likes.
Oh yeah, he probably has more than me.
Boatman, I think it's killing us all.
Yeah, I think mine got like 18 likes, which isn't a lot, but it's a lot for me.
I feel like knowing how many likes you got on it should detract you from getting any likes. We should now you have to delete the review.
Scott, you're also here.
Wow.
I am. On this topic, let me just point out that everyone should go take a look at my review for a little film called Banana Split, which I believe was from 2019. And then we can maybe reevaluate this conversation about Letterboxd likes. But no, I'm excited to be here. This is one of my favorite specific subgenres, and I'm looking forward to hanging out with everyone here. I can't believe we got all the way around to
Carly
me
Rae
before the joke
Jepsen
got made.
fans is cheating. That's cheating.
The Venn diagram has a lot of crossover.
That's fair. Well, as always, we are going to get started with some general fun Letterboxd questions. The first being, what was your favorite movie you logged this week? Michael, we'll start with you.
All right, so I'm going back so basically if I was to go back 7 days, it'd just be 2 Friday the 13th movies. So I'm going back 9-ish
Yeah,
days.
if you want to, I will not restrict anyone to the exact 7 days.
But also, I'm on the show, so I technically I could choose since the show started, since it's the first time, But
yes,
yeah.
If you really wanted to, do what you want.
So the film is actually Little Women from 2019 when I saw it in theaters. There's actually a film from William Friedkin. It's called Bug. It's from 2006. It's written by Tracy Letts, along with you might know him from also writing Killer Joe and nothing else. This is a really fascinating movie that I heard a lot about, but it finally popped up on a streaming service and I was able to watch it. It stars Michael Shannon, Ashley Judd, and just a wild Harry Connick Jr. performance. He's such an ass, and it's great to see. He's really leaning into stereotypes of that kind of persona, and it's about anxiety of just what is real and what's not. You're not quite sure the whole time if you're going crazy, if they're going crazy, and it's it's not a movie for everyone because it's pretty grimy and it's pretty dirty. Like it takes place in Oklahoma, like a motel, like an actual motel, unlike a other classic movie. No, it's
Identity.
Yeah. So, and again, Ashley Judd plays a woman who's sort of down in the dumps and nothing's going right for her. And she finally meets a guy, and she just completely falls head over heels and just believes anything he'll say. And again, it's really fascinating. And for nothing else, I'd say watch it for the performances. Like, say, for example, Caleb. I don't know if this is exactly a movie for you, but I think you'd absolutely get value out of watching it, like for Michael Shannon and Ashley Judd's performances. And if you have any interest in any of those actors and the director, this is a big recommend.
I was familiar with it because it's Friedkin, and at first I was like, I really want to watch this, and I watched the trailer for it. And if any of you watched the video store Watch Creep Show together, you know I have a specific thing about bugs potentially being in people's skin.
Yeah, so bugs do actually play.
Oh, boy, do I have the anime characters for you, Boatman. I got a list. I got a whole list.
That's a thing. So it has to be one of those days where I'm like, I'm okay with being not okay. Has anyone else here seen Bug? Dylan, you seen Bug?
No, but with everything he described, it sounds very much like a movie for me. I believe he said it's like super grimy and gritty, and you have no idea what's going on in it. So that sounds like very much a Dylan movie.
If you like Killer Joe, if you like that, you think you definitely like Bug.
Paul? I feel
Listen,
like
the only Harry Connick Jr. movie I care about, Scott knows. I was literally talking about this recently. It's the John Grisham adaptation, Mickey, from 2004. If anybody's ever seen that, but no, I really want to see this for a long time. Yeah, it's just never been streaming, and it's not something I've wanted to see bad enough to rent, I guess. So it's kind of in the middle ground of like, I'll watch it when it's kind of more available to me, but not necessarily like rush out and see it. I mean, I love Friedkin in general. I've seen most of his early work. I haven't really seen a lot of late Friedkin outside of Killer Joe. But I really want to see it. I mean, it's a great cast. I love kind of like that period that's kind of like the end of Ashley Judd's kind of like moment in the sun almost. But I want to see it. I've never seen. Yeah, that's true. A different kind of startup.
Yeah, no, I'm interested to watch it. I have heard about it before, mainly because of the Tracy Letts thing, actually, because I read his most famous play in college, that being August Osage County, and then kind of went down a rabbit hole of looking into his other work and came across it then. So I'd like to check it out for that reason, and sounds like the actors are good and everything. So.
Okay, Dylan, what was your favorite movie you liked?
Yeah, so my favorite movie that I saw this week is actually a rewatch of one of my favorite movies ever, which I actually watched for this topic for today's show, but I just decided not to go with it for various reasons.
Oh,
wow. But
I bet I know what this is.
It's a Jim Jarmusch film called Down by Law, which is like, it stars John Lurie, Tom Waits, and Roberto Benigni, and it's basically like, it's been described often as like the most relaxed like prison break movie of all time. Like it's basically Jim Jarmusch's take on that style of genre, and it's basically, so John Lurie and Tom Waits, they both play these characters named Jack and Zach, who are very similar in a sense because they're both kind of like people who don't really care that much about where they are now, just basically on where they are in the future. And they end up, it's described where you find out early on that they have like wronged a lot of people in the past, and it comes back to bite them in a sense when they get basically framed and thrown in prison, with Roberto Benigni, who is easily the most like likable and friendly out of all of them, and he's like guilty of murdering a guy. And it's like, just like, if you like Jim Jarmusch's style, I know it's not really, his style isn't really for everyone because all of his movies move at like a very relaxed pace, and the humor is very, very dry. But it's probably my favorite film by him, and it's like one of my favorite movies ever. So check it out if you haven't seen it.
I haven't seen it. I really didn't hear about this movie until Kirk's Letterboxd review, which I think got a few eyes of this community's attention on it. Because when Kirk doesn't like a movie, okay, whatever. When Kirk does like a movie, when he gives a movie 4 stars, that's like most people's 5 stars.
We look up
give
to
it
the
4.5.
sky, see the pigs flying. Yeah.
It's like when Kirk gives a movie 4.5. It was the greatest day of his life. For us, it was just a Tuesday. Like
yeah, absolutely. Michael, have you seen Down by Law?
I haven't seen much Jarmusch. I've seen Patterson, which I really liked. But I haven't seen this, and because it's not really streaming anywhere, I don't think, in Australia.
It's on the Criterion channel. I don't think it's anywhere else.
Okay.
Yeah.
Paul, you seen Down by Law?
Yeah, I saw. So there was a weird in my college library. There was like this weird DVD 2-pack thing that I feel like somebody made. I don't think they sold this, but it was Stranger Than Paradise and Down by Law, like in this like 2-disc box set kind of thing. And the DVD kind of skipped around, so it wasn't like the full experience I would have liked. But I still really like this. It's not one of my like favorite Jarmusch's. I'm more of like a kind of like a Mystery Train, Dead Man kind of person. But I still really like this movie a lot, and I love Benigni. Like he's like one of my sort of favorite curio weirdo movie stars, I think, of his time. But I just haven't seen this in a while. It's like I actually don't even have it marked as watched on Letterboxd because I feel like it's been so long that I kind of want to go back to it because I feel like it'd be almost like a first time watch, not exactly, but I remember really liking it and liking the vibe, but it's been a while, so it's not super fresh in my mind.
Scott?
Yeah, no, I'm kind of with Michael on this one. I've only seen a few Jarmusch films, but I like the ones that I've seen. I feel like I could really get into him, and the way that Dylan has described his movies is something I like. Like I even liked The Dead Don't Die, which most people don't like.
So there are one of you. Okay.
There's 2 of us, in fact.
Yes.
But yeah, no, I'll check this one out.
Okay. Well, we'll go to me next. Favorite movie I logged this week. I'm going with, I've been watching quite a few Best Picture winners lately of the classic variety, as someone on this call may or may not already be aware of. But I'm picking one from the 30s, The Life of Emile Zola. I had no expectations for this film. It's excellent. This film is just fantastic. For those who don't know, it's basically it's the true story of this guy Emile Zola, who was a French writer, and it's just fascinating the direction that this film takes, and that it kind of starts out as like your general biopic, and then it morphs into like this courtroom drama, and the courtroom drama stuff is what really works, I think. But it's fantastic, really interesting, and Paul Mooney is incredible in this movie. Paul Mooney is one of those actors who I haven't seen a lot of his work, but the more of his work I watch, I'm absolutely fascinated by him as an actor because he just transforms into whatever character he's playing. I'm going to take a shot that most people here haven't seen it, but we'll see. Michael,
I haven't seen it, but the premise sounds like really fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's not. And I just checked; it's not really streaming anywhere here as well. Yeah. So yeah.
I have it on DVD. That's the way I watched it.
Dylan, you want to send it over?
No, I haven't seen it either, but it sounds good.
Scott?
See, this is a trap. You're trying to find out whether I've been studying them or not. And the joke is on you because I've watched every single pre-1970 Best Picture winner in the last 10 days. So, I haven't seen this one yet. I'm sorry.
And Paul?
No, I haven't seen. I mean, I've seen William Dieterle's Hunchback adaptation that he did, and I really like some other. I think Boatman you'd really like. I Was a Fugitive from a Chain Gang. If you've never seen that. I want to watch that. But no, I haven't actually seen this. This is one that I was like sort of interested in passingly, but it didn't like really stand out too much. But I think like the way you describe it sounds even like it makes it seem more interesting than I think it is on paper. So maybe I will watch it at some point. I'm not like a full Best Picture completist. There's like, I don't know, 8 or something that I haven't seen. At one point I was like, I got to watch them all. And then I sort of like gave up. But maybe I'll go back to it one day.
Mm-hmm.
Also, it seems like you liked it more because, like, on Letterboxd, the average rating is 3.2. So it seems like
it might just be a weird movie that worked for me. But like the only other person in the community who has seen it is Redshaw, and he also really liked it. But that might just mean that people from Iowa like it. I don't know.
The Letterboxd also makes him look like Alec Baldwin way too much for me. It's weird.
That's totally fair. He doesn't look that young for most of the movie, I will say.
He's not a boss baby. Is that what you're saying?
Scott, what's your favorite movie you logged this week?
Yeah, so I see a lot of new movies for my podcast that I do. So I'm actually going back a little bit further than a week, just because I haven't logged a lot this week. But last weekend, the weekend before last, I went to 3 movies in one weekend, which I hadn't done for quite a while. But I decided to, and I went to see The Suicide Squad on Friday and then Annette on Saturday. And Annette just did not work for me, and I drove like an hour to see it. So I was I was about to not go to my Sunday movie because it was 2 hours and 20 minutes. It didn't, the trailers didn't necessarily grab me, but I toughed it out, and I'm glad I did, because Stillwater was a surprisingly really great movie by Tom McCarthy, director of Spotlight, which is one of my favorite movies. And yeah, I think I shouldn't have doubted him, because kind of like with Spotlight, this is a movie that looks like pure sort of one-dimensional Oscar bait when you look at the trailer for it. Maybe read the plot description, but it's actually a very different film from what you would expect. This is not some kind of true crime thriller, it's kind of, again, like the setup and trailers maybe made it out to be. It's a much more understated film in the same way that Spotlight was. And I think Matt Damon is giving a really great performance, one of the best of his career. Abigail Breslin, someone who, kind of went away for, many years, but has been in a couple movies here recently. I think she's really strong as sort of as his daughter, who's kind of been jaded by being in prison for a long time, and their relationship is very complicated. But it's an interesting movie. It has a very defined 3-act structure, which will not work for some people because all the 3 acts are very different from each other. And I do think there's one twist too many maybe at the end, but I feel like he really sticks the landing. Especially the middle section is almost kind of like a Hangout movie in a way that you don't expect. And so I would really encourage people to give this one a shot, because like I said, it's different from what you expected, and it's a lot more nuanced. I think the themes reminded me a lot of a late era Clint Eastwood movie, but again, directed by Tom McCarthy. So, I think Eastwood's a good director, but again, Tom McCarthy now I think is a stronger director than Eastwood now. So I think he's able to bring some extra layers to it. And I would definitely recommend giving this one a shot. It's one of my favorites I've seen in 2021.
Wow, Eastwood now not that good. Bold take, Scott.
No, he's still
Excuse
good.
you. Excuse you.
Good. Yeah.
15, 17 Paris. Come on.
If you want to talk about Timothy Failure, whatever the fuck Tom McCarthy's directing.
The Cobbler, yeah.
Fair. But I have not seen this yet. In my mind, this is part of the white guy with baseball cap.
Palmer and Joe Bell trilogy, yes.
But see, it's really reckoning with that, though, which is what I like about it.
That's fair. Michael.
I'm always excited when there's a sequel to Almost Famous. I'm gonna run out and see it. This title honestly just messes with me every time I see it pop up. I haven't seen it, but there's a really interesting behind the scenes stuff of just about Amanda Knox, and she had a long Twitter thread about it that is quite fascinating.
Yeah, I have thoughts about it, but that's for another show.
I definitely want to watch the movie and then go back and read the Twitter thread as well.
Dylan?
So yeah.
No, I haven't seen this yet. I haven't really been super comfortable with going to theaters all that often, so this is just one that I haven't really gotten around to yet.
Sure. Paul?
I have no movie theaters on my entire island. But yeah, I also read the Amanda Knox Twitter thread. It does make me feel some type of way about the movie's existence and the way it's being marketed and stuff. You can have your thoughts, Scott. I have mine. I just think that Tom McCarthy is a really confusing director that I just don't understand really the direction he takes his career in sometimes. I'm curious about this. I really like Matt Damon as an actor in general. But yeah, I have no idea what to make of this. Obviously, I just having not seen it. It's hard to really say. But yeah, it's one that I'm kind of curious about.
Are you telling me the guy who made The Cobbler and wrote Rocky and Bullwinkle makes confusing movies?
The confusing thing is that he's made good movies, though. If it was just weird, dumb movies, I'd be sure, whatever. Walt Becker exists, but this is he oscillates all the time, and it makes no even in earliest career, Station Agent, and then The Visitor, and then it goes weird, and then.
Okay, so Paul, what was your favorite movie you liked this week?
Yeah, this is tough because I watched a lot of movies I really like. I think some stuff that I talked about on another Multiplex show recently and stuff that I haven't logged officially yet. But I'll say my favorite movie I logged this week is a movie from a director I feel like Boatman likes, but I don't think he's watched this movie. And it's Whit Stillman's Love and Friendship, which is his most recent film. This is like a period comedy, like a period piece, kind of costumey comedy starring Kate Beckinsale. And to me, it's just like one of the funniest movies like this ever. It's so rare to see like period drama comedies, but I think the way that it pulls it off is really impressive. I think that Kate Beckinsale especially is like incredible. Her daughter is played by Morfydd Clark. If anybody has watched Saint Maud, she's the main girl in Saint Maud. But this movie is just hilarious and super fun, and it's only 90 minutes. And it's just like, it's so interesting because usually when you do period movies, you like there's such an air of seriousness and self-seriousness, but this kind of totally takes that down in a way that's super satisfying. I think it's a movie that will be very rewatchable for me, I would think. It's got really interesting social dynamic. There's a certain scene too where some guy comes up to her and she yells at him. And then her friend asks like who that guy was. She's like, oh, I know him. Like she pretended not to know him, but she's like, I would never talk to a stranger that way. But there's these hilarious interactions that take place, and it's just got the kind of great classic Whit Stillman charm. I was surprised to see the movie made money actually at the box office. I was like, this doesn't seem like something that would be successful. But I really loved it, and it's like the kind of movie that makes me wish more movies like it existed. So yeah, Love and Friendship.
I have not seen this one, but Paul is right. The two Whit Stillman movies I have seen, I have loved. The Last Days of Disco is a Barry Boatman movie that more people should see. It's great. Has anyone here seen Love and Friendship?
I saw it.
Scott?
Yeah, no, Paul made me realize I had never logged it, but probably because I haven't rewatched it since it came out, but I really enjoyed it at the time, too. I mean, I like a good Jane Austen adaptation, and this is like what I feel like is hard to do, where they make it both modern but also feel like of the period era, like without losing that period feel. Like the recent Emma adaptation, I feel like was able to do the same thing pretty successfully. But yeah, this movie is really good, and yeah, it's surprisingly funny.
Dylan?
Yeah, this is a movie that I just like randomly bought on Blu-ray because I saw it was on sale at like one of my local record stores, and I think I was just in like the wrong mood when I watched it originally. Maybe I need to give it another chance because it's been a while, but I just remember the humor didn't really land with me and I was a little bored. But yeah, I don't know. It's not really my thing, I guess, period pieces.
Okay, now we are going to go to the flip side of the coin. What is your least favorite movie you logged this week? Scott, we'll start with you.
So, speaking of my aforementioned podcast that I do, we are on a countdown series right now where we are going through some of the James Bond films. I've never been a huge James Bond fan. We decided to do this in anticipation of No Time to Die, and we kind of I curated because I've seen most of them, 10 movies for us to watch. We're not watching every single one, but we are watching all of the Craig ones. We're up to that point now, and I think you know what I'm going to say. The one that I most recently watched is Quantum of Solace, and I know that there are some people who think that this movie, it's really not that bad. It's just the worst Craig movie, which is, again, one thing I've realized from watching these James Bond movies is it's so subjective. Like, so much depends on what, like, your idea of what a good Bond is. And if you think Craig is the best Bond, then yes, you're not going to find this to be the worst Bond movie because it still has Craig in it. But if you think, and in the same way that if you think Roger Moore is the best Bond, if you like what he's able to bring to the character, you're not going to think that A View to a Kill or Octopussy is the worst Bond movie. But the thing is, Quantum of Solace is not a good movie. Like, it's not. And it's edited very poorly. As many people have pointed out, the action is almost incomprehensible, which for me is tough because I come to these movies mainly for the set pieces and the stunts. The plots rarely ever make sense in a James Bond movie. And that is true of Quantum of Solace. But then again, you throw in the action, also not making sense. And it's just kind of a jumbled mess. The last thing I'll say is that Gemma Arterton's character, Strawberry Fields, as bad as the treatment of Bond girls is in a lot of these movies, gets done so dirty in this movie. It is absolutely ridiculous, to the point where, like, the last time you see her before she dies, like, he pulls up to a party with her as her date, as his date, and then ends up just like leaving her and running off with Olga Kurylenko's character. We never see her again until she is dead, covered in oil. Like she's in the movie for like 4 minutes. She gets done incredibly dirty. But anyway, Quantum of Solace. It's not a good movie. I'm sorry.
Of the Eon Bond movies, this is actually one of two I haven't watched yet. So yeah, Michael.
I've only seen this once, and it was a couple of years ago. I can't really add anything interesting off of what Scott said, to be honest. Like, I don't like it as well. So yeah.
Dylan?
Yeah, ironically enough, I actually saw this for the first time like just a couple of weeks ago, and yeah, I really could not agree more. I think the biggest problem for me is just I don't think Mark Forster, at least at this point in his career, really knows how to shoot action like at all. And like, yeah, going off of what Scott said with the editing, with that opening scene with the car chase, and there's like fucking 100 cuts like per second, and it's like so like disorientating, and you like can't. Disorienting, not disorientating. It's just impossible to tell what's going on, and yeah, it really kind of killed the movie for me.
Paul?
Yeah, I think Mark Forster absolutely sucks. Like, has sucked, has made one decent movie. I think that movie blows ass. That movie sucks. Oh my god, I can't believe people like that movie. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of same thing. I don't think it's like a disastrously bad movie. The action just really sucks, and I think the character stuff is weak. I think Craig is still solid. I mean, he's kind of Craig doing Bond, but I think like the structure of the movie also doesn't really pay it any favors. I think it ends in like a really weird and not interesting area. I think like the way that the story goes, it goes away from the stuff that's kind of compelling. I just think the movie is like super boring. It's not like a terrible movie, but it's just like it's like an ultimate C- D+ kind of movie.
Okay, well, Paul, we will go to you for your least favorite movie log this week.
I haven't seen anything like terrible, but I would say the worst thing I've logged this week is this romantic comedy from the 90s starring Gina Davis and Michael Keaton called Speechless. And the premise is actually kind of interesting. They both play two political speechwriters who are writing speeches for like opposing candidates. And honestly, just outside of like the beginning when they first meet, their chemistry is not really there, and the movie is just really boring. And it tries to take it in this really strange direction in the third act. Like it tries to have these crazy kind of twists that like do not fit with what the characters are doing. Christopher Reeve is like playing like the ultimate douchebag in here, but not in a way that I think is very interesting or satisfying. It's weird because there are two actors I really like in the leads, and they seem like they're right for a romantic comedy like this. And it's got, again, a great premise, I think, but the movie itself is just kind of boring and just like really loses steam, especially like once it hits a halfway mark. It's like there's really not much to hold on to from there. And it's not, again, it's just like a movie that just kind of is like vapor, it disappears. I'll probably remember like almost next to nothing about it like by next week.
I have not seen this. Has anyone seen this?
Yeah. The premise sounds like an old Spencer Tracy, Katharine Hepburn rom-com.
Totally.
Like
It does. It
a
has
couple of rights opposing speech. Yeah, but I haven't seen it.
Okay.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, it has very Adam's Ribby vibes. So yeah, we'll go to me. Least favorite movie I logged this week. I'm going with another 1930s Best Picture winner. This movie is about 3 hours long, and it's The Great Big Field. The Great Big Field is rough. The first hour is okay. First hour is actually kind of interesting. And then the movie doesn't know if it actually wants to be a Ziegfeld biopic or if it just wants to be a recreation of his stage show. So it says yes and does both. And that's why it's 3 hours. So if you like about an hour's worth of just elaborate singing and dancing that has very little to do with the actual plot and is very similar to each other musical number in the movie, cool. You'll enjoy this. Barr doesn't enjoy this movie. So that's probably a sign that no one will. There's also some uncomfortable things that don't hold up, like blackface. So, yeah, not great. Though that didn't stop Barr from liking Yankee Doodle Dandy. So, I don't know.
Wow, a takedown of Barr in this episode.
But yeah, has anyone seen this movie?
I haven't seen it. I just know its reputation is like one of the worst Best Picture winners. But yeah, I haven't seen it.
Great.
Honestly, I'm not really into William Powell, honestly, as an actor. So I'm honestly not like, I don't really like, I think he's easily the most boring part of like the Thin Man stuff. I just think he's not, I don't know, not a guy I really have ever gravitated to. So this is one that I definitely was already less interested in. And I think that makes me perhaps even like a degree less interested in that I already was.
Well, I actually really dig him in the Thin Man. I like him a lot in the Thin Man. But yeah, he's not great in like this. He's fine.
I think Carol Lombard like straight dunks on him in My Man Godfrey. I think she like blows him off the screen. So yeah, I don't know. Not one of my guys.
I haven't seen My Man Godfrey. Fair. So yeah. Michael, least favorite movie you loved this week?
This I didn't hate this movie, but the one I choose is just The Craft Legacy by default. I've been watching horror movies I haven't seen in a while or at all, and this came out last year, directed by Zoe Lister-Jones, who is one of those actress. I think there's nothing really interesting to say about this movie. Like it's sort of a meme at this point, but it's pretty like woke, as they would say. Like they hypnotize or do magic on this boy, like this bully jock, and they make him like really, really like woke. And he's like a hardcore feminist now. He says he's like cisgendered. It's really weird. Like they talk about all these issues and they just don't really do anything with it. David Duchovny's in it. And I feel like the makeup could have been better because whoever the makeup was, they sort of did David Duchovny wrong in this movie because he was looking a bit rough. And yeah, there's not really much interesting to say. The best part of the movie is in like the first 10 minutes where two characters sing an Alanis Morissette song in the car, and yeah, that's honestly, if you want to watch,
if we wanted to watch two people sing an Alanis Morissette song in the car, we could have just gotten video of when you and Jake met up.
You're not wrong.
That was Fat Boy Slim, not Alanis Morissette. Let me tell you.
Michael, tell me I'm wrong. I'm pretty confident one Alanis.
No, there was like a long hour-long brochure where we just ended up listening to Jagged Little Pill the whole way.
Called it. Has anyone had the misfortune of actually watching this movie?
No, but I bet Scott's about to say what I'm about to say. If I were to watch this, it would not be the worst Zoe Lister-Jones movie from the last year and a half that I've watched. She had a movie at Sundance that I thought was like, at the time, I think I talked myself into kind of like it. It's pretty bad, honestly. It's called How It Ends. Don't watch it. This movie I'm like sort of passively interested in. I think the original Craft is like kind of fun. It's like very 90s, it's like kind of an artifact of its time. This is a movie I probably never watched, to be honest with you. There's just not really a specific thing that pulls me into it. So it'll just be a movie that I'm like, yeah, I remember when that came out. Like that's interesting. And maybe these people will go on to other things in their careers. But yeah, this is not a movie that really interests me at all, to be honest.
Yeah, Zoe Lister-Jones, like How It Ends and her first movie, Band-Aid, are both movies that on paper should be like so up my alley. And then after watching both of them, I was just like,
How It Ends is a Hangout movie gone wrong. Let me tell you guys. Yeah. It's like a Hangout movie gone wrong.
Fair.
Lamorne Morris is the only good part of that movie. But yeah, I'm not interested to watch this because of that.
Fair. Okay. Well, I believe last week up we have Dylan. Dylan, what is your least favorite movie you loved this week?
Yeah, so within this week, I actually had a really good week of movie watching, so I had to pull a massive cheat and go back to 8 days ago when I watched Moulin Rouge for studying, and I think I'm in the Kirk train on this one. Really just did not like it at all. The editing is like it's kind of similar to Quantum of Solace for me, where it's just I hate when movies just have like so many like cuts just consecutively, and like it's one of the things that really pisses me off in movies. And like I give it a 1-star rating, and honestly that was basically just because of the production design, which admittedly looks pretty great at parts, but even that it's hard to really soak in all the great work that they put into it, because again the editing, we're cutting to a different shot every single like half a second. Like if I want to actually look at how beautiful everything looks, I have to like pause the movie. So yeah, I really did not like it.
Michael,
I've seen this, but like ages ago. I don't really remember anything. I did like Dylan's Letterboxd review. That was sort of summed up the movie very well, but yeah, I don't really have anything interesting.
This was my drama teacher's favorite movie. And she was like,
your drama teacher Mrs. Darbus? What the fuck?
She basically was. My drama teacher was basically Miss Marvel. So I watched it basically on her insistence that I would love this movie, and it's not good. It has, I think it has more good things than maybe Dylan is referencing. I actually think Jim Broadbent knows exactly what movie he is in, is having a lot of fun here. I also think the Tango de Roxanne is legitimately a fantastic scene. I think that's when they actually slowed the editing down a little bit, and the editing feels purposeful. And I think that actually makes the scene. But yeah, most of the movie is very much just look at me. If you want a good version of that story, watch the stage show that they did based on the movie, which it does new songs with it, and the soundtrack is better than the actual movie. They do a mix-up of Crazy by Gnarls Barkley and Rolling in the Deep, and that actually really works. Scott?
Yeah, speaking of directors who really don't work for me, yeah, this would be one. This isn't as god-awful as some of his other movies, but yeah, it is an orgy of excess, as most of his movies are, so it only gets so far for me, and it's not very far.
Well,
I guess I'm weirdly the biggest Baz Luhrmann fan. I'm not a huge fan of Baz Luhrmann, but I do like this movie. I mean, I will say the kind of circumstances in which I saw this movie were a very romance-filled, high tense kind of thing with someone I was dating at the time. So it definitely I feel had that kind of majesty behind it. So maybe I went in with different expectations and had a different mindset. I liked it. I think I really liked the kind of grand scale of this thing. I do think the editing is a bit much. But I haven't seen it recently enough to really be able to pick out particular scenes or moments that really stand out as working or not working for me. I just have relatively fond memories of this. I definitely like some of his movies more. I definitely like some of his movies less. So this is a decent movie. I mean, I guess relative to a lot of people in our capital C community, I probably like this movie more than most people. But overall, it's I like it. It's not one of my favorite musicals, but I think it's cool. And of course, the Kingsman comes on here talking about musical theater. Good grief. Go watch the stage show. It's what is this?
I haven't even seen the stage show. I was more talking about the soundtrack to the stage show.
Oh.
I don't think very many people had watched the stage show because the show came out February 2020. So,
that's true. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah,
I've talked to people who've watched it, and all of them hate it except for people whose taste is bad. So maybe that's also not good.
Well, now I'm sad. But I've only listened to the soundtrack, so at the very least, the soundtrack's decent. But yeah, now we'll get into our watch list. What's a movie that you added to your watch list that you're most excited about? I'll start us off. I was gonna do one movie, and then Paul just straight up mentioned it and was like, "Boatman, you should watch it." And I was like, I'll go with a different Paul Mooney movie. I'll go with the one he won the Oscar for, The Story of Louis Pasteur. Louis Pasteur. I know nothing about this movie except vaguely who Louis Pasteur is and that Paul Mooney won the Oscar for it. So, and it's the same director as Emile Zola. So, I'll check it out. Michael, what movie did you add to your watch list that you're most excited?
My one is a 1984 film from Wes Craven called Invitation to Hell. I sort of just been, I'm a big Wes Craven fan. I'm trying to watch all these this is a made-for-TV movie, and these other sort of non-theatrical stuff I've been trying to find and watch. And the Letterboxd poster is sick. It looks like Mad Max, but it's not. It's about a guy who moves to Silicon Valley, and all the reviews I've read is it's smack bang in the yuppie era, and it sort of is about that, but with horror Wes Cravenism. So it sounds interesting. It's not highly rated, but it sounds like something I'd very much enjoy and up my alley. So that's Invitation to Hell.
Dylan, what movie did you add to your watch list that you're most excited about?
Well, actually, speaking of Wes Craven, I'm kind of embarrassed to say that I never heard of this movie, but I recently stumbled across a movie called Paris Je t'aime, or Paris I Love You in English, which I just had never heard of. And then I just realized, I looked through the Letterboxd page of it and saw all the directors, and I was like, how have I not heard of this before? I'm not going to waste everyone's time by listing all of them, but there's an insane
chances are there.
24. There's 20. I think there's 24. Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like something as a film fan I really need to get around to watching today with all the talent involved. So
that's fair. Paul, what movie you had your watch list that you're most excited about?
Yeah, so I mean, I haven't seen it yet. I know Scott didn't like it, but I'm really excited for Annette coming out. And I've actually never seen Leos Carax's Lovers on the Bridge, and I just feel like it is so a movie in my wheelhouse kind of thing. It's kind of like two young vagrants who fall in love. They have to sort of work through the trials and tribulations of living on the streets and sort of their painful past and stuff. And it just, like, by all accounts, like, I think everyone I follow who's seen it loved it. It just seems like something so totally up my alley. It's hard to find. So it's one of those things I might have to like go searching through libraries and stuff to see if I can get a hold of. But I'm really excited to watch it. It's definitely, and it's got a great letterbox post. So it definitely always helps for me as far as adding stuff to watch.
And Scott.
Yeah, I haven't always been the biggest sci-fi fan, but in recent years, I think I have found a sort of subgenre of like cerebral, sort of like compassionate sci-fi movies that is really in my wheelhouse. Movies like Arrival, Interstellar, Contact, I think those are really up my alley. And one movie in that sort of subgenre that I've actually never seen, I think I talked to Paul about it recently, actually, though, is Steven Spielberg's AI. So I just added that to my watch list, and I am looking forward to checking it out because, like I said, I think it seems like it fits in that niche of sci-fi movies that I really like, and obviously I like some of Spielberg's other sci-fi adjacent work. E.T. doesn't always work for me, but you know, the movies that I think are more about human connections do work a lot for me. So I think this could be a big one for me when I get around to watching it.
Fair enough. Also, Cody, if this was about the drama teacher, she won. Oh, not a joke.
Oh,
yeah. Anyway, we will get into the actual meat and potatoes of the show. The topic for tonight: Hangout movies. So yeah, we will just get started. Dylan, you want to make the first pick?
sure. So I'll start with decisions. I'll start with a movie about two friends who haven't seen each other for a while, just bonding over dinner. It's called My Dinner with Andre, and it's just a really, I'm not even going to begin trying to sum up everything in the conversation because it'll probably come across very jumbled and not very eloquent, but basically it's just, I love how this movie, like, it has some of the best dialogue I think I've ever heard in any movie. Like, I'm kind of embarrassed to say, like, about halfway through, I almost thought it was like a documentary, like that I was watching. And I just found just like the dynamics of the two super interesting. And like, I think Wallace Shawn is like a really good, like, entry point for like the audience into the conversation. And then it's interesting hearing like how other people like, what they take away from this movie, because it's got like, I like how it invites all sorts of different interpretations. Like, the movie doesn't tell you how to feel, or like it doesn't come to any conclusions for you. It just you're literally just listening into a conversation, and it's just a really fascinating movie, and I like it a lot.
Yeah, I love this film. I was vaguely familiar with it. Really, the first place I was familiar with this movie was from a Simpsons joke where they have the My Dinner with Andre arcade game, which is one of my favorite, like, random jokes in a movie, or not in a movie, in a TV show. And that just got me super interested in this movie. And yeah, I absolutely love it. Wallace Shawn and Andre Gregory are fantastic in this film, and just that's the different direction that the conversation goes in. I think when Andre is talking about like the theater commune, I don't know what you even call it, that happens in the woods. I love movies where a lot of the dialogue is like storytelling based, and I think that this really works. It feels like two people telling stories, and it's so well written. Michael, thoughts on My Dinner with Andre?
I haven't seen this, actually.
Really? Paul?
Yeah, it's great. If you love this movie, you might be tempted to watch a Master Builder because it's like packaged with the Criterion. Do not watch a Master Builder. That movie's terrible. I think it's an interesting movie, a case study. I think you show this movie to like 5 people, and I think they get 5 different reactions out of it. I think it really speaks to the person's own life and experience, the way that they interpret this movie. This isn't like one of my favorite kind of like movies of the 80s, but I do think it's a really interesting artifact, and I think it's really entertaining. Yeah, the dialogue's great. It's just one of those things that I think everyone should see because I think it'll give a different perspective based on who you are as a person. But yeah, it's a cool movie.
I am so tempted to now add a Master Builder to my watch.
I mean, you can watch it as like a strange artifact. It is like a pretty It's just like it's so weird. Oh my god, come in!
I've never heard of that
Oh my
movie,
god.
but it's like it's Demi.
Yes.
But yeah, but so is Ricky in the Flash.
That's a good movie. Don't add me.
Scott.
I shamedly have never seen this either. I've known about it for a long time because of following Siskel and Ebert like history and stuff, and they were huge champions of it and like turned it into like an unlikely box office success a little bit when it came out. So that's kind of interesting backstory on it. But sadly, I've never watched it. But I literally added it to my watch list right now because I'm sure I'd love it.
It's fantastic. Michael, I'll let you make the next pick.
For me, I rope a dope, Proud Cherokee. I do stay busy chopping girls' cherry trees. My pick is Everybody Wants Some. I don't know how to talk about this movie without just rapping the end credits rap. I'll try Finnegan. No, I gotta try. No, this is like literally like has to be on this list. It is the ultimate hangout movie. It is literally takes place over a weekend, features college students hanging out. I'm sure everyone else. I think everyone here has seen it, right? Yeah.
It's only 2 exclamation points, by the way. Just saying.
Obviously, the soundtrack. I think us under sort of secret key to a hangout movie is a really good soundtrack. It sort of keeps you coming back to it, and this obviously has it in spades. This is Linklater. Honestly, it's like probably top. It's definitely top 5. Probably my 3rd or 2nd favorite. It's I don't know. I'm sure struggling with it because I didn't really rewatch it. Honestly, my mind has just gone blank. This is really weird. The baseball scene. I would say the baseball scene I think is really fantastic and is one of the ultimate one song like when you what was the word I'm thinking of? A song gets joined together with a scene, like sort of like it happens in a lot of movies with Linklater. Everybody Wants Some. It's just great. It's just a really great movie. I really wish everybody would watch it and enjoy it themselves.
Everybody Wants Some movie. When I first saw it, I thought it was good, but I was slightly disappointed by it. And I've really come around on it on subsequent watches. I think it's because when I first saw it, I wanted it to be like another movie that has the potential to come up tonight. Not has potential. With the 4 people on this panel, someone is going to bring it up. I guarantee it'll probably happen. If it doesn't, I'll be shocked. But yeah, I think that Everybody Wants Some is just a really well-made movie that places itself squarely in a clique in which I was never a part of, but is really fascinating to see the inner dynamics of it and how that clique kind of weaves in and out different other parts of this college experience. It's just a really well-written movie. Zoe Deutsch is just fantastic, and so is Glenn Powell. They're the 2 highlights. Scott, you hate this movie.
I've seen it once or twice. No, I think Paul and Michael and I are in a competition at this point to see who has logged this the most times, probably on Letterboxd. But yeah, I mean, it's one of the best movies ever. Like I got into it in college, which is when it came out, and so it has that personal thing of it for me too, because like this movie and like my college friends and I watched it a bunch of times, and we connected over it, and we would quote all the lines to each other. So I was kind of, even though like Boatman, I wasn't in that group of people, like I got to sort of experience that sort of bond that those guys have in the movie with my own friends over this movie. So that was really special. Yeah, it's just amazing characters. I think Linklater is so good at just finding the humanity in all of these people. Again, like none of us probably like these characters that much, or like the characters in his other, the other movie Boatman was referencing. But he just kind of lets them exist, and in doing so, I think there are a lot of universal truths that are able to come out, and there's some just more contemplative moments in this movie in between all the funny stuff that is just so Linklater, and why he's my favorite director and I love his movies so much.
Paul, or no, you've already no, you haven't.
No. So yeah, I mean, I've had this movie on Your List Sucks like at least 7 times or some shit like that. Yeah, I mean, it is just one of my favorite movies, and it just really endures, I think, coming back to it and revisiting. I mean, it's special to me because I think this was kind of my experience in high school, at least. Like, I definitely was like an athlete, and I played baseball, and like it captures those dynamics, I think, to such a T. I think Tyler Hoechlin is actually really underrated in this movie because I think like he is such a perfect performance of like what that kind of jock is really like. And both the good and kind of the bad as well, I guess, in some ways. Obviously, Jay Niles is just like an insane character when he gets in a fight because somebody flicks a lime in a screwdriver. Like all that stuff is just insane. For some fun, there was on YouTube, Annapurna released like a video that has like 25 minutes of just like extra footage. And I'm glad that most of it got cut, but it is like still fun to watch.
Watch to the very, because the ending is the best part.
Yeah, that's great. But no, I mean, yeah, one of my favorite movies. I love all these characters, essentially. I think like the way it structures itself around this weekend, I think is perfect. And like that kind of hangout movie has like these time parameters that really kind of like let you kind of just sit and bask in it. Yeah, one of my favorite movies. But what else is there to say?
Dylan.
I would
find what else is there to say.
Not much, really. I will say I wish I could go back in time and bet money on someone bringing this up today, because I actually haven't seen this movie until this week. Because I figured that someone would bring it up on this episode. And yeah, pretty much everything they said is true. Like, I absolutely just had a blast with this movie. I think Glenn Powell is probably my favorite in the cast, and that's probably also because his character shares the same name as my dog. So, but yeah, good movie.
I'll say, because I'm gonna mention I got really distracted. I'll just say a couple things. I really like. Everyone's favorite character is Finn, but like we're all really just Brumley, like, cheers for the beers and just say cringe shit all the time and try to make us look cool. The sort of the inner competitions is really fascinating and so true to life that I think only a director like Linklater could really do. And like the ping pong scene is sort of quintessential Linklater about the ultimate athlete. And like speaking of Tyler Hoechlin, like there's a really small moment I love when they get into the fight at the club, and Guzman's character is like Roper. He tells Tyler Hoechlin to you don't want any part of this fight. You're like our star athlete. Like that's just a little thing that doesn't really mean much to people, but like if you're in the know and you catch on to that, that's something that really enhances the experience in rewatches. And yeah, and just everyone check your pillows when you go home.
What does it mean?
I'll make my next pick. I am gonna go with for my first pick. Yeah, I think I'm gonna go with an ensemble film with a great soundtrack that takes place in a few decades before it was made. I am going with the film that absolutely represents the decade of the 1950s, going with Diner. Diner is just an excellent film that I basically knew nothing about before I watched. Like, I knew it was kind of a dialogue-ish heavy movie that took place in the 50s, but I really hadn't heard that many people talk about this. This is fantastic. I love this ensemble. You really get the sense of chemistry. And they very, even though the dialogue is very era specific, it's got this like Linklater-y rhythm to it, where it's these pop cultural references that do affect the actual dynamics between the characters. I think easily the most interesting thing about this movie is the football quiz, which if you've seen is probably one of the more memorable things in the movie, where a guy, before he is going to marry a woman, needs her to pass a football quiz, which is so insane.
You don't do that, Caleb?
But like,
Get me.
It's like in the Wedding Ringer, yeah, to do the same thing.
as people who all care about trivia, maybe not necessarily football trivia, but trivia in general, is just really fascinating. So yeah, and like when the one guy like gives away an answer and they don't give her the points for that, it's just like, challenge.
Do they call hands? Do they call hands there?
Yeah, I don't know. We never see her, so maybe they didn't call hands. But yeah, this film's excellent. Daniel Stern is probably my favorite character in this movie, but that's probably because that's the most Boatman character in this movie. But everybody's great. Anybody seen Diner? I know Paul has.
Yeah, there's a scene in a movie theater that is a little yikes, I would say. That is not age great. I mean,
movie made in the 80s representing the 50s.
Well, I mean, it could never take place in any decade other than the 50s. The only decade we had diners in, obviously. But I mean, this movie, I think, is solid. I think it's very 80s kind of like hangout movie in ways both good and bad, I think. I think the characters are a little thin, and they don't have a lot of dimensionality to it. At least for me, I like in the same way that I think my favorite hangout movies, I feel like the characters they have a bit different kind of interplay. But I think it's a solid movie. I mean, it's probably my favorite Barry Levinson movie. It's certainly up there, but it's not like a favorite of me. But I kind of figured that Boatman would have this. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else seen it?
I haven't seen it. The main thing I know about it is I associate it mainly with, there was a trivia match a while ago. Bretton was hosting, and he asked a question about what decade it takes place in, and he just says, "It's Diner. It's in the 50s," and that's literally, I just cannot get that out of my head. That's like a deep cut reference.
What other decade had diners? I'm like, well, name one. Name one.
Yeah, anyway, I haven't seen it.
What if you're going to guess the decade?
We don't have time for this whole conversation.
I really only knew about this movie because of Boatman when he first watched it. But it, I mean, obviously sounds up my alley. I think that goes without saying on this episode with this topic. So I'll try to check it out.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Paul, we'll go to your pick.
Yeah, earlier Dylan said Down by Law, the most chill prison movie of all time. Aha, sir, I disagree. My pick is Stalag 17, which is my favorite Billy Wilder movie. Never before has a POW camp looked like more fun and a greater time, I think, than in this movie. But I mean, it is just a great cast of characters that have all these really strange quirks, but there are so many moments I love from this movie. I mean, the moment where they all do the fake Hitler mustaches when the commandant comes into the bunker is fucking hilarious. I love Animal's obsession with Betty Grable, which is like the most random movie star who's like not even really famous anymore. And I feel like a lot of people honestly probably know her more from this movie than anything else. But I think, again, it's all the little things. And the fact that there is this kind of underlying mystery that almost enhances the hangout vibe, so that at moments there's some tension, but then you have great scenes like this, the one at Christmas where they're singing, they're singing and dancing around in a circle. This is just, I feel like, one of the most fun, relaxed movies that has a little more dimensionality to it because of the kind of circumstances and the time period and everything. But again, Billy Wilder, one of the great writers of dialogue, I think. And the visual gags are also great. Like the scene where they're painting the line and they go all the way to the Russian women bathhouse kind of thing. Like all the little moments, I think, make this movie really special. Yeah, this is one of my favorite movies for sure. I mean, William Holden is like probably my favorite American movie star ever. I think he's like so good on this. And yeah, Stalag 17.
Scott, have you seen Stalag 17?
A long time ago, when I was like first getting into movies, I was still like not allowed to watch a lot of stuff because I was sheltered as a kid a little bit. But so I watched a lot of classic movies, and I definitely watched this on TCM at one point when I was like 11 or 12, and just didn't really get it at the time. So I don't even really count it as having watched it, but I have watched it. And obviously I need to revisit it because I do really enjoy a lot of Billy Wilder films, and the ones that I've watched recently for the first time have like gone either into my top 100 immediately or close. So
yeah, like the Lost Weekend. But yeah. All right. Anyway, Dylan.
Yeah, I saw this one because I was studying for a trivia match against Cameron Redshaw, and I actually really enjoyed it. But I don't know, a lot of the stuff I remember just because I was just jotting notes, so I can't really give that much insight on the movie itself. So, but it was good. I enjoyed it.
He's a true trivia player, folks. He belongs.
I'm glad you have a at least one correct opinion on a Billy Wilder movie. Michael.
I saw this last year. I've only seen it once, and I really enjoyed it too. And I think this totally fits in the category. And I mainly didn't think of it. I only made a short list, but this totally fits. And this is actually a really good pick. I really love obviously the interplay and the interactions, and there's a little bit of mystery in there as well. And yeah, this has a character for like everyone. I think everyone can latch on to someone, and I mainly know Betty Grable just because that was the 4-point of Redshaw got first me. So yeah, we're all learning about Betty Grable today.
I know Betty Grable from a Community joke. Like I know him from a Community joke, including a Great My Dinner with.
Roland probably knows his father from a Community joke first and foremost, and not from real life.
Probably. Kidding. He came back with the Forrest Gump DVD. Everyone, you saw it. Anyway,
is that a Big Sick reference or Community?
That's a multiplex reference. Scott, your pick to round us out of the first wave.
Okay, I kind of got scared for the last two picks that I was about to get taken, but I'm going with another classic film that is considered to be one of the original Hangout movies, and it's my favorite Western and one of my favorite movies, Rio Bravo from 1959, directed by Howard Hawks. This is kind of a movie that has like everything. Well, you know, when you think about these Hangout movies, a lot of times you think of stuff that has no plot. And the thing about this movie is it does have a plot. It's just that the plot is so unimportant, it seems like, or they're just taking their time so deliberately to get to it, because it is ostensibly about this, you know, criminal getting put in jail. His brother has a gang that he's going to bring to the town to try to free his brother from jail. But the movie is, for the first, 2 hours, is just these guys vibing in the town, just waiting for the gang to arrive. And it's just this great cast of characters. John Wayne is the sheriff. Dean Martin probably giving my favorite performance in the movie as this old former deputy who got fired because he was a drunk named Dude, but then gets welcomed back, gets kind of a second chance to, be the hero. Ricky Nelson plays this sort of young gunslinger named Colorado. And then Walter Brennan as, the great comic relief character, as like the crippled old guy who just sits in the jail and drinks all day. And
Stumpy!
Yeah, Stumpy. Stumpy. Yeah, and then there's a romance between John Wayne and Angie Dickinson as this woman named Feathers, which is really great. She's kind of rides into town and then gets kind of swept up in the way that we all do with all these characters. And like I said, it's just a great ensemble to spend time with. Maybe the iconic scene from the movie, and I think the one that sums up what's so special about it is when Ricky Nelson, Dean Martin, and Walter Brennan have a little sing-along in the jail on like the night before the bad guys are supposed to come, and it's just such a great sort of pure movie moment of these guys just in the face of what could be their death the next day, or just vibing, like I said. So this is a perfect movie in my opinion. It has everything you could possibly want in a movie, and I want more people to check it out. I put it on the Full Metal list last year so that more people would watch it. I just absolutely love it.
Yeah. This was a movie I watched a while ago. I actually watched it as a double feature with High Noon because I saw the Cinefix Westerns video that they did, where they basically explained how Rio Bravo was kind of like a response to High Noon. And that whole thing is very fascinating. But this movie's good. I didn't quite like this as much as High Noon. I kind of want to rewatch it again on like its own. I want to. It's been a while, Paul. Give me a break. I was like 17 when I saw this.
I just don't really like High Noon. Sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean
Oh,
to
either.
that's right. I really do like High Noon. But yeah, I think that this one was good. I remember really not liking Ricky Nelson, but really liking Dean Martin. So I want to give this another go. Michael, you seen this one?
I actually own it I bought it on DVD like last year, and it's one of those classic things where I've just been planning to watch it, and I'll get to it eventually. I
How
own it, so
dare you own DVDs that you haven't watched yet?
I know.
What kind of person? What kind of monster would own DVDs? Potentially 100 DVDs that they haven't watched.
Yeah, I mean, if only I just like stuffed them in a drawer and then put, and
a lot of inside jokes on this episode.
One person is watching. I think we're okay to make inside jokes.
I think it's Cody, so he'll get them all.
Dylan, have you seen Rio Bravo?
I haven't. I actually didn't know that this was like a movie that people like absolutely adored until just recently. I would hear like mentioned with other classic westerns, but I didn't know that. It wasn't until recently that I heard that like, no, this one is like one that you have to see. So yeah, I'm definitely gonna check it out sooner rather than later, probably.
Yeah, I think this is Tarantino's favorite movie, actually, and something he cites a
there,
lot.
yeah.
If anybody's seen Assault on Precinct 13, that's basically John Carpenter repurposing this story into a modern context, which that movie also rules. Yeah, I was going to honestly bring this up for Best Movie I Watched this week, but I kind of figured Scott was going to have it, so I was like, well, there's another way to get some other love out there. I think Angie Dickinson's awesome in this. I think she's a really underrated actress. I mean, she's great in, like, Dressed to Kill, in Point Blank with Lee Marvin. Like, she's a really, I think, a great actress in this era. But yeah, I mean, great. I mean, My Rifle, My Pony, and Me, that scene is just iconic and incredible, and super fun. I'm a big fan of Westerns in general, but I do like this kind of Western more than most, I think. And Howard Hawks is like kind of one of my favorite classic filmmakers, and I think this might be my favorite movie of his. Yeah, this movie's great.
I believe that's everyone on Rio Bravo.
Yep.
Okay, then we'll come back around to Dylan, your second pick.
Okay, so I'm gonna switch gears a little bit here and go with another one of my favorite filmmakers, who is Jacques Tati, if I pronounce that right. And I'm gonna go with one that I don't think as many people have seen, and it's Monsieur Hulot's Holiday, or Mr. Hulot's Vacation, Mr. Hulot's Holiday. It kind of has a couple different titles out there. But yeah, this one is, I think, a great entry point for his films, like, because this is like his second film that he ever made, and it's the first one where he really like kind of defined what would become like his style, where it's like very atmospheric and like just like it's almost like it's like you're taking a vacation just by watching it. Like, it just puts you there. And like they just Tati as like a physical comedian is just like so impressive to me. Like the way he can just make like the most subtle movements that are just fucking hilarious. And there's like one scene in like a tennis court that makes me laugh like really hard, where he's just casually destroying everyone at tennis and everyone's getting super pissed off. Yeah, it's just like, this is like a perfect like comfort food movie for me, where I could just turn it on like a rainy day and just enjoy myself. And it makes me very sad that only the two people that I follow on Letterboxd have this at like 2.5 stars. So that makes me very. One of them may or may not be on this panel.
I have not seen this film. I haven't watched a single Jacques Tati film, though I really do want to watch Playtime eventually. Paul.
That's his best movie.
Yeah, I mean, Jacques Tati's like one of my favorite filmmakers. This is honestly probably my least favorite of his movies. I think it's fun. I don't think it's as well crafted as far as the physical comedy as I think the later stuff, and I think the stuff where he really becomes an elite filmmaker. Again, this, like Dylan said, it's kind of is his finding his style still, and I think it's something that he really perfects. I think starting with like the sort of the films right after this is kind of where he really peaks. But I think it's a fun movie. I mean, it's a movie weirdly in some ways about like how difficult it is to relax for some people, how it's like work to get to this relaxing period. But I mean, I like it. It's not like one of my favorite movies, but it's one of those that like is a cool shout out. It's gonna be funny like when people see the list of this show and they're like, what this movie? But no, yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, I'm assuming you haven't seen this.
No, I haven't.
Okay, then we'll go to Michael.
Yeah, so I watched this last year. Like I sort of watched all the only two Tati movies I haven't seen are like his two biggest ones, like Playtime and Monarch. I watched all the four like within like a 2-week range. So that's probably why I rated it a bit lower than it really deserves to be. I like this movie. It's just sort of the least favorite of that style of movie, and like the tennis scene actually is really funny. Again, I've only seen it once. It was like late at night, so I don't really remember too much. But I actually absolutely agree with the pick. Like, if you love this movie, this absolutely fits on the list because I mean, all of his movies are technically Hangout movies because it's not. Really
I think this is one of the only ones that's really. I feel like a lot of the other ones are more propelled by other stuff. Like I wouldn't call Playtime. Yeah, I wouldn't call like Playtime or Monarch like Hangout. I mean, I guess they're at the house in Monarch, but yeah.
But yeah, like I think Kaleb would absolutely love Tati's movies as well. So yeah. It's a good pick.
I will try my best to check them out. Michael, your second pick.
Okay. Fuck, I don't know where to go. I'll just go. I'll just say my pick would be Almost Famous. I was sort of debating on whether or not to do this one because technically there is a plot, but a lot of these movies have plots. This movie's classic. Cameron Crowe, based on his life, when he would go and talk like Led Zeppelin, the famous "I'm a Golden God" scene coming from Robert Plant, actually saying that. This movie is about self-discovery and finding what you love in spite of it maybe not being the coolest thing to do, but in terms it actually does end up being really cool later on. Just the performances mainly from Billy Crudup is actually like it's a star-making. I think it's kind of underrated. Like the way he's able to play the classic guitarist, who Jason Lee says he's the guitarist with Mystique, and and then Jason Lee is like the lead singer with charisma and stuff. I think it's just a really fantastic movie and classic Hangout vibes in this. And the character of Penny Lane is it's very tragic. And sort of a hot take is, don't really like Kate Hudson as Penny Lane that much in this movie. I sort of wish it was someone else, to be honest. She's like sort of my least favorite performance, weirdly enough. All the cameos along the road trips are really fun. Like Eric Stone Street, I think, is the guy from Modern Family. He's fantastic, where he's just like, your mother called. Exactly what happened there. It's so quotable, so rewatchable, and just the ultimate vibe and Hangout movie, I really think.
Mm-hmm. I of course love Almost Famous. I think that there are so many songs in this movie that I can now immediately tie to the movie, not just like the obvious Tiny Dancer. Like whenever I hear when Christmas music starts playing and I hear the Alvin and the Chipmunks song. And that's immediately where my brain goes. But yeah, Frances McDormand just kills it in this movie. She is fantastic in this. Like, I think even though he's in 15, 20 minutes of the movie, Lester Bangs is just one of my favorite side characters in the movie. I think just maybe my all-time favorite movie quote is and I'm gonna mess it up a little bit, but the only currency that matters in this world is what you share with people when you're uncool. I think that's just one of my favorite quotes in the movie, or in movie history. And I love the whole cast is just fantastic. The plane crash scene is so just a roller coaster of emotions. Scott.
Yeah, Broken Record, another one of my favorite movies here. My favorite Lester Bangs line is when William calls him from the road and is just kind of like giddy and doing all the things that Lester told him not to do, right? And getting caught up with the rock star. And as William hangs up the phone or whatever, he's like, the kid's on drugs. Like his delivery of that line is so perfect. But yeah, this movie's incredible. It's irresistible. I don't know how you could not like this movie, to be honest. And when Anita leaves at the beginning and they start playing Simon and Garfunkel's America, which is like my favorite song. I was like, the first time I saw this, I was like, this movie is for me. But obviously it's for a lot of people, but it's also for me.
Yeah, Paul?
Yeah, I mean, this is the movie that gave us Lock the Gates, so of course, forever iconic because of that. I mean, yeah, it's a great movie. I honestly haven't watched it in a while, and I've kind of been wanting to rewatch it. So I'll probably watch it again sometime soon. I mean, yeah, I think it's a great movie that puts you in the perspective of a kid, I think, entering this world in a way that's really interesting. And like, I think because it comes from Cameron Crowe's real experience, like that stuff is so tactile, and it doesn't feel like someone writing about someone else's life. It feels like someone kind of speaking to their own life experiences. And I obviously just love the ending too, when he's like, he asks him what he loves about music. That stuff is really perfect, I think. And the way it concludes is great. And obviously Zooey Deschanel kind of as an underrated part as the sister. I think she's really charming and sets him on an interesting path, I think, in a way that like she affects the movie like a lot more than people maybe realize.
Dylan?
Shockingly enough, I actually haven't seen this one, but judging by what everyone has said, I know that it's one that I'll definitely like. I don't know. It's just a big blind spot for me that I haven't gotten around to fixing yet.
There's also a deleted scene on YouTube that everyone should watch. It's literally just a scene for Stairway to Heaven. And it's like 10 minutes and it's just them air guitaring and miming Stairway. It's actually really fascinating. So everyone check it out.
And it's an accomplishment that Jimmy Fallon can be in a movie and I can still like it.
Yeah.
That is actually
everything he was saying is correct. Like, yeah.
Paul, I'm going to let you make the next pick because I know you got Hard Out coming up pretty soon.
It's not as hard, but I appreciate it. I'll make my next pick next, though. I mean, honestly, I was kind of between a couple different things. Honestly, Dylan picking a French movie took one of my picks sort of. I was like, I don't want to double up on the kind of French movies at the end of this. I'm going to go with a movie that I think is one of the great movies ever made, honestly, and that's Robert Altman's Nashville. I think this is a movie that, as far as different characters and experiences in life, and I think a big theme, again, like we've mentioned, is music. And I think the music in this movie is just immaculate. This contains my favorite ever Best Original Song Oscar winner with I'm Easy. I think that is such a perfect song for this movie. And I think all the little pieces, when you have people like Shelley Duvall, who I think is incredible, and honestly, all of her Altman performances, but especially this. The late great Ned Beatty, I think, is remarkable in this movie too. But all the different characters that kind of weave in together, and there's not a character or a plot line that I'm like, oh, I wish we'd cut away from this to the other thing. I'm always like, oh yes, give me more of this character, give me more of these people's lives, give me more of this mayoral race or this family in their suburban home and all this different stuff. Like, it has so many components, and I think it is like an ultimate mastery of the art form kind of movie. And it is a movie that I think is just so. It is like the craft is insane. Like few movies have ever been made this well that evoke this special feeling, I think, of connectivity and love and happiness. And I think that Nashville and melancholy too. I mean, Nashville is one of the great films, I think, and definitely one of the great hangout movies ever made.
A lot of these movies are based around music and based around their soundtracks, which is interesting to just look at the reasons for why. I think it's because like that is one of the things that people do really bond over, and I think can make these kind of very plotless movies have these kind of impactful moments. They almost score the movie better than a score could in that sense. I think soundtracks just work so well for these types of movies. Nashville's fantastic. I've only seen it once. I want to give it another go, but it's not really one that's super easy to rewatch just because of the runtime. But yeah, we're really good. The stuff with I'm Easy is absolutely fantastic. I also really love the stuff with Shelley Duvall. I think that all works. But yeah, movie. So also great cameo from Elliot Gould. That's fun. But yeah, Scott, I think you and I both watched this movie for the same reason the first time we watched it.
Yeah, for a match last year. That's true. I forgot that. And Michael was also involved in that match. But I watched it for that match and I was like, wow, I've really been missing out on this for a long time, because not only is it, a hangout movie, great hangout movie, which is something I love, but it's set in my home state of Tennessee, which is something I love even more. So, this movie is a masterpiece. It just feels so alive from the very first moment. And that ending, I mean, is one of those like great, like chill inducing like movie moments that are really hard to capture, but especially after, the whole 3 hours leading up to it, I think that sort of unifying moment of tragedy, then turning into again the music kind of uniting everyone, but with with a dark with a sort of darkness hanging over it as the end credits start to roll. It's just such a perfect way to end the movie.
Yeah. Dylan, have you seen this?
No, I went to watch this. I was going to watch this a couple of times, and I think the runtime scared me off. And then I ended up watching like Monsieur Hulot's Holiday instead a couple of times. So I have not seen this one.
And I didn't even like it the first time I saw it, honestly. And it was one of the things that
I don't think you watched it for the match. Did you ever end up watching it eventually?
No, I haven't seen it just because the only way I watch it, I have to rent it. And yeah, I haven't seen it. But Boatman definitely deserves a spot on this list. So I'm glad he was brought.
Yeah. Wait, talking about Prairie Home Companion? Isn't more
pretty good movie, honestly.
Gingerbread Man. This close.
Oh yeah. So now we'll go to my pick. Scott, I'll just make your next pick easier for you. I'll take the big one off. Dazed and Confused. I didn't know. Maybe Scott really wanted it, and now then I'll feel bad. But I was just like, I'll take it. Yeah, I mean, what can you say that hasn't been said about Dazed and Confused? I just love this movie so much. I love how you get just the glimpse of like every single part of the high school experience. Obviously, it's meant to be a time capsule of the 70s, but I think so many of the dynamics hadn't changed in so much to where it feels super foreign. It's still very much, I think it's because it's the 70s as represented by the 90s. There's this weird element of timelessness to the film that really works. I've obviously said before that my favorite segments of the film are with Mike and Tony and Cynthia, but I love all the characters in this movie. Maybe not love all the characters as people, but I love all the interactions in this movie. I think that, Pink is one of those characters that could have been like really boring, but they actually find a way, even though like she's kind of a general character, they really do make his conflict really, really interesting. The way he's that guy who like was in kind of every clique in high school, and they make him work like that. I also love Mitch. Mitch is great. Mitch Kramer, very fun. The soundtrack, of course. I feel like so many songs are just tied to this movie, whether School's Out or No More Mr. Nice Guy. I think my favorite use of a song is Hurricane. Hurricane is just when they're walking in the Emporium. Great. I know a lot of people on this call love this movie. I don't know how Dylan feels about this movie. Dylan, how do you feel about Dazed and Confused?
I love it. It's been a little bit since I've seen it, but I just think this movie is like so much fun. Like pretty much everything that I said about Everybody Wants Some, I just find like this movie to be just a lot of fun, and like, yeah, the soundtrack, like you said, is fantastic. And like, I think I might like Everybody Wants Some a little bit more. I'm not sure if that's just like because I've seen it more recently, but overall, yeah, I didn't even bother writing this down on my list because I knew it was going to get brought up today. So, but yeah, it's a great movie.
That's fair. Michael.
Yeah, to anyone who's watching this and thinking about playing Warzone next year, just be warned, you will get a video from Kaleb saying, "All right, you freshmen bitches." Happens to everyone.
Now I have to do that.
But no, I mean, I love this movie. As you know, it's not exactly a surprise, and it totally fits on this list. Just because one of the characters is a bit iffy doesn't mean you're that person for liking that. I think like thinking that specific character is the best part of the movie says more about the person writing that review than it does I really love the movie. So,
I mean, here's the thing for me. To think that he is passing judgment on any of the characters in the movie, I feel like he's just missing the point.
But like, Scott, depiction is endorsement. Didn't you know? Oh my God.
Because
think of the children.
In either direction, Linklater is not necessarily saying either of these characters
No.
good.
He's not saying Mike is the best guy ever. Like, that is also not what he's saying.
He's just saying.
For the record, I have never said that. For the record.
He's just like the greatness of the movie is like he's just like these people exist and we're just going to show them existing for an hour and 50 minutes or whatever. And if you read about like the making of the movie, it was just like a really transformative experience for a lot of the actors who were involved because he just let them be themselves and like they were outside the constraints of their parents and everything maybe for the first time because they were all very young when the movie was made, and he just kind of instead of being a stand-in parent he was kind of like go live your lives. And I think the result, the authenticity and the freedom that they all felt, makes this such an infinitely better movie because it all comes out on screen. So, yeah, I mean, perfect movie. It's funny. I was gravitating between two movies for my last pick, and this actually wasn't one of them. So you did make it easier for me, unfortunately. But we'll get there in a second, I guess.
Glad I guaranteed that this got on the list then.
Yeah.
I was like, do I pick
True.
Yes. But yeah,
I will say, thing about this movie, Carl Burnett sucks. He is like the shittiest friend. He like interrupts his friend making out with somebody. He like breaks a beer bottle for no reason. That guy sucks. I think the good thing about this movie though is like in high school, some people suck, and that's just how it is in high school. That's just how people are. I mean, Parker Posey is for sure my favorite character and performance in this movie. I think, fry like bacon, like all that stuff is just incredible. Like, I mean, I've said this before, but wipe that face off your head, bitch, is like one of my favorite movie lines ever in any movie. I think it's so funny. And yeah, I think the way that it sort of flows into these different characters, and I mean, obviously the whole Martha Washington thing is great. Like there are so many little moments that I think make this movie special. But to me, one of the key moments is actually the good game scene at the end of the baseball game, because you don't have to have that in your movie. And I'm reading some behind the scenes stuff. The studio executives were like, why is this scene in the movie? But he's like, but that's the stuff that everyone cuts out that makes this movie true to life. That every kid who's played Little League Base or whatever has that, whether they lost or whatever, they're like, good game, good game, good game. And it's so mundane, but it's the mundanity of life. And that, and the old guy telling Randy he's ready to throw for 2,000 yards next year. Those little moments are what make the movie stand the test of time more than movies that try to be too cool and cut out sort of more basic everyday stuff.
Okay, so I believe we just have Scott's pick left. Scott, your final pick.
Real quick, Boatman, are you able to show our StreamYard names on real quick? Because I do think given that we just talked about Dazed Confused, it's worth acknowledging what I put before we even came into the room. But okay, there you go. My last pick, again, I was between two movies. I feel like we have picked a lot of dude-heavy movies, though. Maybe that's just the nature of the topic. But for that reason, I will not pick Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. That will be my runner-up. And I will pick Frances Ha, which I watched yet again the other night. And this is one of those movies I feel like you do have to be of a certain age to appreciate. And like, I don't say that about a lot of movies. I feel like a lot of great movies are just kind of universal. But I say this as somebody who watched this movie when it first came out in 2013 and was like, I don't really get it. And then I watched it when I was like starting law school and like, at 23 years old or whatever. And I was like, oh, wow, now I get it too much. Like I get it to a painful level almost. Because the movie is just like perfectly captured. Like maybe only The Graduate is the only exception of a movie that better captures like that feeling of being outside of college, out in the world, but not really knowing how to handle yourself out in the world, not really having been adequately instructed on how to like be a real person. She literally says at one point, I'm so sorry, I'm not a real person yet. And that's kind of what the whole movie is about, is her struggle to be a real person. And it's, it's sometimes very awkward and embarrassing. Like one of the most tragic movie lines ever is when she goes to the movie theater in Paris and just says, what time did Puss in Boots start? But also it can be beautiful. And I think the place that she ends up at the end of the movie is really beautiful. And again, there's just such personal stuff in this movie to me, like such specific things that I'm like, I thought I was the only person who like felt this. Like when she's at a party towards the beginning and she says, she's talking to Adam Driver's character and she's talking about how like I can't get connected to like animals in movies. Like they have to talk or go to war for me to like actually feel anything. That is like how I have felt for so many years, and to see that on the screen is just like crazy to me. But obviously Greta Gerwig gives an amazing performance. It's just like there's so much of herself in this character. It's just such a perfect meld of actress and character. And it's just a hilarious movie too. Like the dialogue is just so funny to me, like laugh out loud funny at times. And I just absolutely love it. It's one of my favorites, and just one of those that I can throw on any time because it's so short and just makes you feel good.
Yeah, I haven't seen this one. I've been meaning to. I feel like everyone else on this panel has seen it. I know. Dylan.
Yeah, I really enjoy it. This is, I think, the first Noah Baumbach movie I ever saw, and I saw it at, I think, just the right time because I didn't watch it when it came out, and I saw it like much later when I was like in, I think, like first year of university, and it really connected with it a lot. I think there's like a very like universal like quality to it where there's like something you can relate to in this movie, and it's just. Yeah, I think Greta Gerwig is just fantastic in this role, and I wish I would have like seen. I'm gonna probably go watch more of her like acting roles because just from her performance in this, like I've seen the movies she's directed, but like she's like a legit. Yeah, she's like legitimately fantastic.
He's playing. Let's go.
No.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of my favorite movies too. Baumbach is like a very kind of formative filmmaker for me. This is one of the early ones that I saw. I think this weirdly is a movie though that is for a specific generation too. I think if you're like too old or even if you're kind of too young, it's going to struggle to connect with some of the themes in this. But I mean, the whole quote she says at the one party where she's talking about love and when you're at a party and you look at someone across it, like that whole thing, I think is. So touching. I think Mickey Sumner is underrated actually in this as Sophie, her like kind of on again, off again best friend. And rarely has a movie captured the sort of aimlessness of your mid-20s, I think, when you don't quite know what you want to do. So, I mean, this movie, I mean, it's also gorgeous in black and white. I think like the choice to make it in black and white really works for a movie like this specifically. It doesn't work for every kind of movie like that, but it's great. I think she embodies that character so well. And this is the kind of the turning point, I think, in Baumbach's career where you start to see more empathy, I think, and warmness in his films. I think when she starts collaborating with her, that's what makes his later movies, I think, his best movies. Even though I love his early stuff too, I think it's more fully three-dimensional. I think when you introduce the female voice and a different perspective, I think it brings the whole thing full circle. And I think, again, it's one of my favorite movies. And yeah, I actually didn't really think of it. I mean, I know it does count, but I didn't think of it very early on when it comes to Hangout movies. But it's a great pick.
That's fair. Michael, you've already talked about this, right, Michael?
No. When I saw Scott post on Instagram about like Stormy Night, but I figured this would pop up. Because I've only seen it once. It was a couple years ago, and I didn't quite vibe with it. I found some scenes like sort of cringy, to be honest. Like the dancing, I got sort of cringy. It's just not my thing. But I've only seen it once. I have been wanting to rewatch it because I know there's something there. I don't know why I didn't quite. Like it as much, but I'd be curious to go back and check it out because I know, like, I'll end it there.
Fair. So has everyone talked about this? Okay, then that wraps up that portion. Just refresher. The movies that were picked tonight were My Dinner with Andre, Everybody Wants Some, Diner, Stalag 17, Rio Bravo, Monsieur Hulus Holiday, Almost National, Dazed and Confused. Before we head out, we got one last thing, and that is the movie of the month. Movie of the month tonight, of course, being Glengarry Glen Ross. We will go. Since we've got an all-new panel, we'll go to everybody. Paul, we'll start with you. Thoughts on Glengarry Glen Ross?
Yeah, so actually, I had not seen this for a long time, and then there was a big sale on the like collector's edition Blu-ray that I ended up getting. It's got a really cool cover and everything. But yeah, I mean, I think it's a really solid movie. I think this is the kind of movie I don't know if I'll ever like love. I think like the stilted kind of stagey nature of something like this doesn't always 100% work for me. But I think this movie is, again, really well written. Weirdly, though, I think now I'm almost desensitized to the point where like the stuff Alec Baldwin's saying doesn't even come across as that harsh to me. Like having met people in the business world that are just like that, or even worse. Like, I mean, what he's saying is pretty brutal, but I guess I've seen worse at this point. But I think that to me, the performance that always has stood out is Jonathan Pryce, and I think he is kind of somebody who's not really talked about as much in this movie, but I think he's really incredible. And you just see like the sort of lost aimlessness kind of wandering through life in his eyes that that is the reason that Ricky Roma can kind of latch onto him almost like a parasite and to try to exploit him. But I think it's a really well written and well staged movie that I think just is a bit bound to its theater roots for me to really love it. And it's not quite as sort of cinematic in the kind of way that I would maybe want something like this to be. But I mean, it's incredibly well acted. It's pretty well directed. It doesn't have any like insane flourishes or anything, but I think it's just like a super solid, rock solid, like it's a very 90s theater adaptation. That's like, it's a super solid talkie drama. That's like a, solid 7 or 8 out of 10 kind of thing for me. But I don't know if it's ever going to be like a favorite for me. So yeah.
Sure. Dylan.
Yeah, this is kind of like a hard movie for me to like talk like all that insightfully about, because I feel like what's great about it is so just like sort of like on the surface, like it's just a great ensemble of actors and with just given like phenomenal dialogue to work with. And it's just like, yeah, the entire cast is amazing. Like my favorite's probably Jack Lemmon, who I've grown to like really appreciate as an actor. And like even in movies that I controversially do not like that much, but so we won't go into that. But yeah, I enjoyed this movie a lot. I don't think it really does much to like become like the movie that I would ever consider like one of my favorites or one that I would like go back to consistently. But I really did enjoy it a lot. So
yeah, Michael.
Yeah, this like in 2015-16 era used to be like one of my favorite movies just because I really liked the combative nature of it all. But and I hadn't watched it since then, and I really held up. It's sort of like a verbal sports movie, if that makes any sense. Like it's just characters just like spitting, just going all out. It's like an actor's wet dream, and it does sort of take getting used to the setting of it all. Just like, okay, this really is like a stage play. If you're not prepared for that, it could be a little bit jarring, but it is really interesting to see these desperate men just like clawing for their lives. Like Shelley Levine like has to do it because his daughter is sick and he like desperately needs the money. He just was taking any sort of little inkling he can. And it's like even when he goes to the house, like straight away this dude is just gonna like try and get him out of the house straight away. He's just trying everything he can to like sort of needle his way into trying to get a sale. And yeah, I just really love the way Abuchu says, "You stupid fucking." I'm not gonna say it. It's just he just says "fuck" so well. It's great to hear. And yeah, Jonathan Pryce's character, he's just so sad. He fits really well into like the sad sack of like movie characters. It's just like this dude. I don't know what his home life must be like, but yeah, it's just really depressing to see. And I really love that every time someone goes into the interview room, they just come out like they just been like assaulted and abused, and they just come out changed people. It's quite fascinating. The ending is a bit abrupt. I think I would have loved it to just go a little bit like 10-15 minutes longer, because it sort of ends and it's like you sort of do get the conclusion of the story. But I was really interested into like the Roma story, and just yeah, we'd go on a little bit like 10 minutes longer.
That's true. Scott.
Yeah, I mean, so first of all, I really love David Mamet. Like The Untouchables is one of my favorite movies. I also love, some of his other stuff, like The Spanish Prisoner, The Verdict. I mean, I think a lot of his more under the radar stuff is really good too. But the first 2/3 of this, the first 2/3 of this movie are like the richest steak dinner you could possibly eat. Like it's just like there's so much of it, and it's all obviously it's all like really good acting and dialogue and everything, but you get to the point where you think it's about to be too much, and then I think the movie actually takes a really effective shift in the last third of the movie, kind of starting with that scene between Pacino and Jonathan Pryce in the office, like the little sort of quiet conversation that they have together, where Pacino is trying to talk him into thinking that, oh, well, you know, maybe you can convince your wife, maybe you can change your wife's mind, you know,
Monday.
still.
Yeah.
And then when Spacey like blows, you know, his deal, his con that he's, you know, pulling, and there's that moment where Pacino like turns around and just glares at him, and you think it's about to be like, you know, the Pacino in Heat with the broken TV, you know, rant or whatever. But he actually like he tones it down to a pretty effective degree. Like he's just like seething, and then yeah, some of Jack Lemmon's moments in that final third are really effective too. Like when after Spacey exposes him and goes on the whole thing and, you know, basically fires him. And the way that he like at the very end, just when he's lost everything and he's just like, and by the way, my daughter's sick. Like he just throws it in there like so desperately at the end. And Spacey also like perfectly is like immediately just cuts him off like we're done, or I forget exactly what his line is, but it's just like perfectly played by both of them there. And so yeah, I think again, you start to think you're getting too much, because I'm not always a fan of movies that are just have so much capital A acting. But I like the direction that the movie goes in the last third, and I think it ends up being really effective ultimately.
Yeah. So before I forget, I need star ratings for everyone so Tim doesn't get mad at me. Star ratings on Glengarry Glen Ross. Paul.
Yeah, so this is one that I sort of have gone back and forth on. Had a 1-star rating, had another. I think for me, it ultimately rested at 3.5.
All right.
It is a little, yeah. Anyway.
Dylan?
I'd give it 4 stars.
All right. Michael?
4 stars.
And Scott?
And of course, I'm the high one at 4.5 stars.
That's fair. Okay, well, that about wraps it up. Reminder, August 24th, we don't know what's going on. And August 31st, we have comic book sequels. So if you want to be on that, message either myself or Tim Brzakala.
You'll see the same panel. Every single person on this panel is going to dying to be on that episode.
Absolutely. But without further ado, we will say goodbye. Thank you to my panelists, Paul, Dylan, Michael, Scott, for being on. This was a very fun show. Hopefully people watch this one when we bring it to YouTube. Yeah, this is a real good show. Thanks for watching, everyone. Keep logging it.
In case I don't see ya. Good afternoon, good evening, good